The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Episode number 40. Can you believe it? We've made it 40 episodes. That's amazing. And, oh, dear Lord, my heart just started pounding. 47 days until the man burns as of this recording. Oh, man. I remember the panicky mess that I was prior to my first burn. I was watching all these veterans around me laughing about how they haven't even started packing yet. And it was like extra confusing to me because I'm looking to them for leadership. And I'm like, do you people not understand where we're about to go? I've been reading about it on blogs for like a year. Anyway, now I'm doing the same thing. This obviously is not recommended behavior, by the way, listeners. If you haven't actually been to the burn yet, don't wait till last minute to pack. That's not something you should do. But guys, check out session number 4, A004, as it is officially called, of Alkaline with Johnny Quest. It was really fun for me to do the intro in that one because I have a very personal connection to Johnny Quest's art. Head on over to burnerpodcast.com or alkalinepodcast.com to bump that JQ hotness and to hear my personal little connection to Johnny Quest's DJing. Want to know what we're taking to the burn this year? We, as in the Burner Podcast crew, it's a recording booth. Yeah, I know. We've had a couple of people say like, oh, it's like something. I guess because apparently there have been a couple of other recording booths on Playa in the past. But in our initial meetings, when we were brainstorming about what to take, Ramiro, our art director, was basically the one who brought all of his engineering and build knowledge to the team. He basically like just threw his dick on the table and he's like, we're building something. And then we started brainstorming about what that thing was going to be. And when we threw the ball around for a while, it just didn't make any logical sense to do something else because we're going to be using those recordings on this show. So Navjeet, Burner Podcast's music editor and producer of Alkaline, is learning like whole new programming languages to get the touchscreen part to work. And producer Meg's brother, Paul, has been just tremendous. Stay tuned during the break of today's show for a little sneak peek of the project. And speaking of today's show, it's a camp profile. Today we sit down with Shangri-Lawless. And as always, we start out with their humble beginnings and follow the story of the camp to where it is today. Shangri-Lawless was rooted in Coachella culture, which kind of makes sense to me because I always felt like they were a pretty sexy camp. So we'll get to the story of how this group of friends started festivaling together and how their connection to the Super Kids planted the seeds for Shangri-Lawless to grow into a forest of splendor that it has since become. Oh, and you get to learn what Super Kids are because I didn't really know. People kept asking me like, hey, are you with the Super Kids? Do you know what I had no idea. So it was nice to finally be able to get that question answered. Joining us today are Moki, Helix, and Freckle. So let's go ahead and get into it. Today's episode is entitled Shangri-Lawless. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
Things there were sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
There is no editing.
Okay.
Yeah, we just recorded the conversation. Now, it's funny, so for this most recent episode, the last one that just came out was Halcyon. Okay. and that one was named Halcyon finally because everybody's been saying, when are you going to get Halcyon on?
Yeah. So, he's been a San Diego burner in the limelight for a while.
Oh, he's a huge figure in like burner community in general.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's one of our burner celebrities. So it was like, I kind of felt like getting him on too soon. I think same thing that Meg felt would be like blowing our load way too quickly. So.
That's why you waited for us for so long.
Yeah,
I mean, like, you couldn't do us first. Like, you had to get like at least 6 or 7 other ones down first.
I'm actually going to end the show after this one.
That's great.
I'm going to go to call it a day. No.
Fantastic.
I was going to be like, man, it's like, well, we're just going to be left with that. We burned the show.
That was it. Yeah, that's the last one.
Burned burner podcast.
Like most everything else with our camp.
Which is a funny story.
Yeah. We have we're going to get into that. I'm working with some people up in the Bay Area right now, and I'm in contact with a couple of other people in different parts of the country as well who are interested in starting a thing. And I tell everybody is like, if the thing about starting a podcast is, my phone might even be on. Who cares?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually just getting ready to Google the hard answers.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we need phone a Google.
We it's a lot easier to come on to a brand that's already been moving. So, for example, if you only have the capacity to do a show like once a month. You can get away with that if you're part of like a network where there's more regular content coming out, rather than starting your own thing and only releasing once a month and then like missing an episode, and it's just you can't get away with that. So that was kind of the tactic that we used on another podcast network that I co-founded, which is called Platform Collection, and that one covers the independent hip hop scene.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
So we started Crappy Awesome. That was a weekly show. That's on like 250 something episodes at this point.
That's a good name. I would listen to that podcast almost based on that name alone, right?
Yeah.
Like, now that you've said it, I'm more interested into it like than other words that you've used to describe it up to now.
Well, it's funny because I think the name filters a lot of people out immediately.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because I'm like, if you're going to come on our show, you're probably pretty cool. If you're going to agree to come on a show called Crappy Awesome. But it's a lot of rappers talking about DMT. This is basically the majority of Crappy Awesome.
Oh, wow. Okay, now I'm more interested.
Pretty legit. Right?
It's a lot of so it's a lot of those topics, but this is basically the same show, but no rappers. I haven't had a rapper yet.
No.
But yes, Shangri-Lawless, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Let me have you guys introduce yourselves one by one so that the listeners can associate a name with a voice and then immediately forget about it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll start off. I'm Freckle. I'm from San Diego originally, and this is what I sound like.
I'm Moki. Been doing this since the beginning, so hello.
And I'm Helix. Some also know me as Derek, depending on when and where you catch me. And so this is my voice.
Freckle, Loki, and Helix. Beautiful.
Yes,
Cool. Yeah. So anyway, we're talking podcast stuff, and then now we're gonna do like an interview type thingy. So let's kind of start with the beginning on how each one of you got involved with Shangri-Lawless, or at least obviously as far as the founders go, how it came into your life, the idea of doing it. So let's take it back sort of to the beginning. They're pointing at you, Helix. How long have you been in San Diego?
Probably about as long as I've actually been going to Burning Man, luckily. Okay. And that would probably be about 7 or 8 years now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where were you before this?
In Los Angeles for a couple of years, and then previous to that, other places in Southern California. But I actually grew up fairly close to the burn, just outside of Reno by about an hour. And so it was always kind of a part of, just like hear flitting comments about this crazy thing in the desert that I was like, whatever. But it was, it's kind of like just, I suppose, by ambiance or whatever. This has always kind of been on the edge of my life. And then I didn't get the opportunity to experience it until I came down here, just randomly, really.
So did you grow up in Reno?
Just outside of it, in a little town called Susanville.
So, because Reno's a pretty small town.
Yeah. Really.
You were in a town called Susanville?
Super tiny.
Oh, wow. What was that like?
It was interesting because it's actually about 15,000 people, but a third of that is locked up in 3 major prisons that exist in the town.
Jesus.
And so, it's a nice little stop off of mountain town and whatnot, but, I actually kind of feel that being in a little bit of an outside area that didn't have a lot of activities as a child kind of forced a creativity in both myself and my friends just to kind of entertain ourselves. And so I kind of value that at least. Yeah. Yeah.
How would you guys, so living in a small town close to Reno, like what was the buzz about Burning Man like?
It was always what you would expect from people who know nothing about it,
What sorts of stories would you hear?
Oh, just, it's just this crazy hippie thing in the desert where there's no showers and it's extremely hot and dusty, and the sexuality and just like kind of and at that time it was definitely the most radical form of Burning Man that I was hearing about. And I was also a much smaller kid who hadn't experienced a lot of the world, and so my view of it was probably no different than somebody who would have grown up in a conservative town.
Everything you described sounds pretty accurate to me. It sounds like they kind of had a pretty good idea of what Burning Man was.
yeah, I suppose, but minus a lot of the positive aspects. I'm sure we've all experienced, where
they saw it as like a heathen fest.
Yeah, exactly. But they don't understand, like we do, how much work and passion is put into it and what really goes on out there. And so I feel very blessed to have had the opportunity to have my brains blown out, and kind of fragments put back together to like create a much better being. I feel.
So, what year did you leave Susanville? Is it called?
Yeah. So I guess it would have just been for college, and that was 2001. I'm 33 nowadays.
It's like somebody just set up shop in like this area, and they're like, my wife's name is Susan. I'll name this place Susanville.
Probably. Yeah.
That's where it started.
It was like the first gruff lager.
Yeah. Probably wasn't much more complicated than that.
Where did you end up in college?
A little university called the University of Redlands, which is in San Bernardino County, so not too far. And then I did postgrad in LA and followed a friend down here to San Diego, who then promptly had to move out of San Diego. So I didn't really know anybody for many, many years, and just by raw circumstance happened to fall in with a small group of people who were going to Burning Man one year, and I was inevitably convinced. And I'm really thankful that I went with it. So
that was okay. I'm sorry. So what year was that? San Diego?
In San Diego, probably would have been
when you came to San Diego.
Yeah, I would imagine somewhere 2007.
2007. Okay. So prior to 2007, where is Loki?
Mogi with an
Mogi. Mogi.
Yeah,
M-O-G. Okay.
M-O-K-I.
M-O-K-I. Mogi.
Yeah.
Mogi. Got it. Know your guests before
I
they
moved
come
here
on
in
the show.
2000. I moved here in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no inclination of what Burning Man or festivals were.
Yeah. Where were you before this?
I was in Columbus, Ohio.
And what brought you out here?
On a whim.
Just dart at the map?
Just kind of was like walking through the oval, the grounds of and there was somebody holding some interview, and I was like, that's cool. You got a job in San Diego. I'll take it. Thank you very much. And that was pretty much it. Got here and then was doing a bunch of odd jobs, kind of trying to meet people and things like that. And eventually, a couple years later, I think it was around 2008 or so, maybe, I took a road trip up to San Francisco and visited one of my good friends up there. And he lived with actually two of the staff that worked for Burning Man.
Yeah.
And hung out with those guys for like a weekend, and he's telling me all about it and explaining how he's going to go out into the desert and build a shower made out of dried ice.
Yeah.
So we could shower in the middle of the desert. And I thought, man, you guys are just nuts. I could never do something like that. That is just beyond me. And turns out it actually wasn't.
Do you remember who the staff was?
I don't, and unfortunately he passed away, and I can't figure out how to reconnect at that point. So I suppose maybe if I sent an email to them, I could.
I'm sure we could look that up. Yeah,
I'm sure.
So,
that was pretty neat. Like there's books all over. They're telling me about it, and then I'm like, no, I can't. No way. You guys are nuts. I'd never do that. And then many, many years later, I've done it a lot.
Yeah. Freckle. Prior to 2000.
Yeah.
The early 2000s, where were you?
Yeah, so prior to early 2000. So let's see, I'm 30 right now, so I would have graduated high school from San Diego at Mount Carmel in 2004. So
you were born and raised in San Diego.
Yeah.
That's fucking rare.
Yeah, I know, right? Almost everybody comes here. It's like, the Roach Motel. Like everyone comes in. You never really go abroad and meet a whole lot of people that are from San Diego. Yeah. They're usually everyone just kind of migrates to there and then stays. So my parents, they were the exact same way, right? They were both transplants. They came here, and I graduated from high school in 2004, went up to UCLA for 4 years. I tried to get some big, nice jet-setted job somewhere in London or Spain or Tokyo, but I also promised myself that I would just take the best job offer that I got, which happened to be in San Diego, which I thought was a little bit of a defeat because I kind of wanted to keep going out further. First, I'd started in San Diego, went to LA, tried to be like, okay, where's the next big city? And then 100 miles right back south again and came back home. So that was a little bit of a defeat. Kind of in my eyes. So I lived in far north in San Diego as I could. I was working for Qualcomm right after I graduated. I do software, computer science. And I was working in Carlsbad, so I could be like as close as possible to my friends back up in LA. And then they all started graduating from school and kind of leaving. And after 2 or 3 years, I was just sort of up in Carlsbad, having an okay time with things, but just, like hadn't really found passion or anything else, and kind of like tired of it, just sort of like wanted to move to a different city. And then I ended up running into, I started working with one of my work friends, and started hanging out with him more. And he went to Burning Man a couple of years previous, actually Clay, and Lisa and Brendan and all the rest of them. So he had gone with them in 2000, I guess that would have been like 8 or 2009 or something. And, he had really, really enjoyed going to that one, and then kind of like, convinced me that would be really cool. So as soon as he started like showing me pictures of it and kind of explaining it a little bit more, I just got like absolutely hooked. I'm all about experiences and finding new things and kind of learning what other people think is really, really cool and gets them going. And Burning Man is just this massive mecca of that kind of feeling and experience. So I was just drawn to it instantly. 2011 was my first year that I went, and I've been going ever since. Yeah. And it just keeps on getting cooler. More work, but cooler every year at the same time.
Yeah. That's a lot of the stories tend to end that way. I went so-and-so, and then I didn't stop going forever, I forget who, Christopher Robin, I remember very clearly.
Hey, Chris.
It was my first burn. I was like, I was at Spanky's Wine Bar. And
I know Spanky's.
Of course we know Spanky's. And I was, that feeling you have your first year where you're just like dazed and out of it.
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt. I wasn't even, I was totally sober, just out of it.
Yeah.
And he's like, first year, huh? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're fucked. And I just stared at him in confusion. He's like, you're never going to be able to not come back. I'm like, fuck, you're right.
No.
So how did you two meet?
Nick and I?
Yeah.
I believe he had... There's actually a pretty large portion of our camp that are originally from Ohio. And I believe that he was kind of part of a group that made this exodus to San Diego. And I might be mistaken about that.
I was pre them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I met one of our camp members through another third-party friend that's never been to Burning Man. And anyway, started hanging out with them a little bit, and then we met, and then eventually I think we coalesced everything at like a Coachella one year.
Yeah, ironically, a
2008,
long time ago,
maybe?
Coachella, the last time I went, which would have been probably almost a decade ago.
2008, I think.
Yeah.
So was Coachella sort of like the testing ground?
It was where a whole lot of people met that didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And then over time, let's do this. I think is the bulk of it.
Yeah.
What year was that at Coachella?
2008.
Okay.
It was like Gorillas and...
Gorillas?
Tool, maybe?
Oh, okay.
Muse and Gorillas.
Oh, okay, Act, right.
Yeah.
Acts.
At first I was thinking of actual gorillas.
That's the only thing I remember.
Nowadays.
Years at this point are kind of blurring, so who knows.
I've not been to Coachella, but the stories I hear about like a previous era sound amazing.
It started off really cool, and then kind of got really, really crowded, like way too crowded, more and more crowded every single year, I think.
It's just like any other.
Yeah, just like anything else. Like it just sort of like the popularity kind of made it harder to go and attend. And if you weren't super into it. Okay.
It was 2009.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're not super, super into like any of the bands in particular, like if you're just going for it to be a big social event, it's a little bit more daunting, I think. You'd have to I only went when there was someone that was really, really compelling to go. So I think I got to see Tool, Massive Attack in 2006. Which is super awesome. Also, when I heard Paul Oakenfold, which is like my first like live like electronic like DJ spinning in a big environment, like big tent thing, that was like, oh shit, this is like totally a valid like musical art form. I had no idea. Holy crap. And that was pretty cool. And then I got free tickets again in 2012 when I went for like being a chaperone for my sister, my girlfriend's little sister.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so hot.
Chaperone for your girlfriend's little sister.
Yeah, so like the whole way that worked out. So like I was very much like, I don't want to go to Coachella. It's like too crowded. It's like way too hot, too expensive, or whatever. And her little sister was like 18, and she was dating her boyfriend. They were both in thing, and they were just really good at like compelling their parents. They were all like the babies of the family, so they're really good at convincing their parents to like buy them really expensive things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So they convinced them to both let them buy tickets to Coachella. And then somehow it turned around that they would only go, or the only way that their dads would let them go is if like they had their moms go as chaperones. So the mom of my girlfriend's little sister and her boyfriend's mother were both supposed to be chaperones, and then both of them ended like a week beforehand didn't actually end up wanting to go at all because they're like, actually, this seems like a really terrible idea. So they just gave us the tickets. And then under those circumstances, like, yeah, I'll totally fucking go.
Yeah, that's a good.
And I got to see
I would
Radiohead,
go.
which was fucking amazing. And like Radiohead's my favorite band, and I'd never been able to see them before, so that was awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was good.
Good side story.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, so is that so? Was it at Coachella where the idea for Shangri-Lawless came together, or
No.
how did
Well,
that seed get
we
started?
actually at that time were calling ourselves the Vibe Tribe.
It was just we were just nothing more than
at the event. We're just like, oh, we're vibing. We're the Vibe Tribe.
How many of you are there?
Now?
in Shangri-Lawless
then.
now. Oh, then it was probably not more than a dozen. And at that time, I think I was the only one in the group who'd actually been to the burn.
Okay.
And so I was the whole time. I was just
you'd
on my
actually-
soapbox.
This
Like,
guy,
this is
this guy
cool,
was
but
hot shit. He had fun hats and fun clothing and things like that. And I'm like going to Coachella with like a plaid shirt and like some shorts and be like, I'm fucking cool. I'm cool. I wasn't
fun.
that cool. But
Dude, good plaid though, you know?
But yeah, I think that group kind of just kept hanging out. And the following year, we went to. Some people went to Burning
to the
Man,
Burn.
but not as a camp, just kind of hanging out.
we were actually ended up next to Pink Mammoth, who are now some of our very dear friends, and we've had the chance to collaborate with them a little bit. But I remember at the time we were at this camp, I was like, "Oh, Pink Mammoth is so cool! Look at all the stuff they're doing," and I would have had no idea that it would have progressed the way that it has to the point which now we even talked about villaging at one point, which is just kind of a crazy transition. But
We're gonna get to that in just a second, though. But
sorry,
so,
I
it's okay. This is why I do this part.
Yeah.
So there's 12 of you, and like half of you went to the burn.
I think that I just happened to be in kind of this like de facto leadership position because I was the only one who had actually gone before. And so then we did 1 year as an iteration, and
The
then
only one that had left the cave.
yeah, exactly. And I was just very thankful that somebody else had brought me there, and I happened to be like, well, all my terrible ideas for structure building before the camp inevitably failed about half of the time. But it came to a point once where I was kind of tired of trying to organize and get everybody into a certain section of the city when you didn't have placement, and I literally made the application for Shangri-Lawless up.
Yeah.
Completely bullshitted the entire thing.
So
and
this was the
submitted
year
it.
that like 6 of you went.
No, that would have been 2010 would have been 6.
Okay.
No, there was like there was like 12 of us in 2010, and it was just a very small camp with a parachute.
So 2010, you did decide to camp together, though. You said
Yes,
that
yes,
earlier the group kind of went.
I actually did not go 2010.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a small group in 2010.
Okay.
And then after that, it was basically I made up the application. It was accepted because I think it was kind of before the few years where it became much more difficult to actually get placement.
Yeah.
Just made up the whole thing. We made up a name and kind of a logo. And
What does that mean? You made up? Like, what sorts of stuff were you making up?
we had almost no infrastructure.
Yeah.
And you look at the application and you're like, well, you have to kind of provide some sort of a feature to the guests. And so we're like, well, maybe we can do this, but we didn't actually have the infrastructure. We didn't know how to do it.
What did you offer to do?
Originally, our idea was to tell stories around a campfire or some such thing. And then we had the idea to basically create a very small bar. We came up with the name Shangri-Lawless, where we wanted to kind of mesh a little bit of the crazy Wild West with kind of more of a peaceful Eastern, what's the word that I'm looking for? Paradisical city. And it really just allowed us to have a lot of flexibility because we had no idea what we wanted to do.
I'm sorry. What does paradisical mean?
Like a
adjective
paradise city.
Ah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Got
Yeah,
it.
it's a mythological city that's
Yes.
where it's almost utopian.
Yes.
And so we're like, well, campfires, and we're like, we don't know how to do that. And we eventually just came up with the idea to maybe throw in a poker table and have playa poker and serve booze and basically make a little kiddie pool.
Yeah.
And then it just
That
kind of
all
launched.
sounded easier than a campfire.
Yeah. Well, I think we wanted a little more bite too.
Yeah.
And once it was accepted, we just had this oh shit moment.
Like,
That it was like,
They bought
we
it?
really have to do this. And there was probably only about, and this is when Nick had joined us, and if only we had you back then, Ryan,
Yeah,
things
man.
would have been, things would have progressed a bit quicker. But we had this oh shit moment, and then it was probably one of the most magical moments of the entire generation or progenation of the camp, if that's the right word, because everybody just went ape shit. and we got it done, and it was beautiful. We ended up on the edge of district our very first year.
I'm sorry. So there was like 6 of you. You guys had a poker table.
12. There's probably 12 or 15 at that
12,
point.
15. Okay.
For the first year of Shangri-Lawless.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2011 was the first year, right?
Yeah. Correct.
Rites of passage. Half of us had never been there before.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And you said, I'm sorry. So you had a poker table and what else?
Poker table, a kiddie pool, and a bar that we the first piece of furniture that we hand
Some
built.
lounge and some Goodwill couches, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some IKEA furniture.
Okay.
Yeah.
An Illuminate. I mean, it was all Illuminate based, and
Was there a door?
Just an open.
Yeah.
Just a typical Illuminate.
There was some
square
saloon
structure.
shutters.
Okay.
Yeah, those saloon doors. Don't try to build saloon doors on the playa.
Yeah.
You're gonna waste
I
all
think
your time.
Dusty
doing it.
Poon's the only people that have been able to have a successful pair that actually last through the whole weekend. Everyone else has just fall off the hinge.
And that's actually how I met
Yeah.
the Dusty Poon guys, because I saw their door.
Yeah.
And I just ran up to Chuck, and I was like, Chuck, how did you guys figure this out? And we shot the shit, and we've been friends ever since. But yeah, they got it. But
Yeah.
I love it when we have references to previous episodes because Chuck has been on this show.
I saw that. Yeah. I was like, oh, I love that guy.
It's almost like a superhero crossover.
Totally.
What was tell me what like the biggest punch in the face lesson from that first year was, if you can think of one.
Well, I don't know if it's punch in the face, but there was the bareback sex going
Bareback
on.
sex?
The bareback sex going on in the middle of our bar. That was quite surprising. Like, wait, we have to plan for contingencies like this.
Bareback sex means like naked sex?
No
guys were in
condom,
a cuddle
anal
puddle.
sex
Yeah.
in the middle of our cuddle puddle in the bar, and then it was like,
In the
whoa,
day.
we need to think
During
about
the
these
day.
things.
Oh wow.
That wasn't really the
That's
punch.
bold.
It was so much fun that I don't ever really feel like there was kind of a kick.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh man,
You mean the
we need to
bareback
do
sex was so much
better.
fun?
I don't think I was ever there. I'm pretty sure I was
Just
running
gone
around kind of crazy.
Off doing your own bareback sex privately.
Well,
I guess it was really
more
more
own, I suppose.
perhaps a kick in the pants, like, oh wow, we did it, and I can't believe people are coming in and enjoying the space, and people would come in tears, like, I've gone through this unbelievably trying set of experiences to get here, and they happen to just wander into our bar as the very first thing.
Wow.
And we can offer them this refreshing drink, and that's when you have that magical moment where you're like, I actually made a difference in one person's burn. And it's almost like the entire thing and all the work that you put into it was worth it at that one moment, just for one person. And that was kind of, I feel like, probably why we always felt the addiction after that, was because it doesn't have to be 1,000 people that you necessarily affect, but if you could really affect just a handful of people where they'll tell some crazy story a year or two down the line, like, then that was all worth it. Because for me, I'd been out there for a couple of years and really just went out and had fun. And it was time to give something back, and when we had the opportunity to do that, and luckily because of these gentlemen and a handful of others, people had enough passion to care to do that, we were able to put it together and make it happen. Like, that was the beautiful kick in the pants experience, I feel. I don't know.
What you're describing has overwhelmingly been that answer whenever I ask that question. It's,
cool.
And what it is, like out there, it's like the volumes, because they've done studies on this. Like we know that when we make somebody else feel good, we feel good. And out there, the volume on that seems to be turned like all the way to the top. So like that feeling gets like even more intense.
Well, everybody's happy, and you're happy, and you're providing happiness to another happy person, and they're
positive
immediately
feedback. Yeah, it's a
2
positive
times
feedback
more
loop.
happy now, or 1,000 times more happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Exactly. I mean, it's a positive feedback loop, and that's kind of always been my sort of view of the play. Is that, like, the first couple times you go out there, you're basically just spending all your time just trying to catch your breath and just be like, oh my god, this place is so intense, this is so awesome. It's just this massive stimulus override the entire time, every direction all you go. And you get home, you try to think about your life, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. And if you go back and just do the exact same thing again, but don't really get anything better, then you're going to notice that, like, wow, this is a lot of energy, and like I don't have the wow factor that I did as much as the first time. And if you just keep going expecting for all this selfish stuff, it'll most likely just kind of fizzle out, and then you'll get tired and burnt and like angry at all the parts that really, really suck at it, like waiting for 12 hours in line, getting like arrested, or like getting all your stuff confiscated, getting $500 tickets, getting just all the bad things that can normally happen to you, having your car get crashed on the highway on the way back home. And it's only when the new people come in that bring that energy back that kind of makes it feel good. So I try to make a point of telling all the new kids. I actually remember Jermaine, the first year that I ever like talked or hung out with Jermaine. He was like, his first year, I think it was 2013. He was Camp with Shangri-Lawless. And I was just, and And I went up to him and was like, okay, a lot of people tell you that you're just a virgin and you're just like, you don't know anything, you're not contributing anything. He's like, no, like what you're bringing is actually more valuable than because everybody else, we show up with all of our cool shit, plus all the baggage from all the other
Literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively from all the other things. Everybody's got a chip on the shoulder about how they had to endure some hardship, but they can't really whine about it, so they just kind of convey this sort of like authority and like super like presence over you. But realistically, the only reason that all these people keep bringing stuff back to the playa is for you, so that you get inspired and then you turn around and go back home and try to come up with something beautiful. And it's just the more you can kick it off, and exactly like you said for like the camp, right? If you can kick something off that once you even back out of it yourself, all of a sudden it's picked up its own momentum and it's taken on its own life. I mean, that's like, that's creating something whole and organic like anything else, like growing a tree or, building a community or building a business, like anything. So
yeah, that's perfectly said.
Yeah.
That's absolutely a lot of what happens, I think.
Yeah.
I never actually got that experience of like just not showing up with nothing on my schedule. And I remember half the time I was there, I was totally regretting that. It's like I had gotten that advice of like, regret is a strong word, but I'd been given the advice by veterans like not to go and take on responsibility your first year, like go take it all in. And
wait, what's that? What do you mean?
Responsibility?
Just to have fun the first year.
Nick has never not had responsibility.
But I didn't have much the first year.
Yeah.
None of us had too much the first year. So
Relatively.
No, that's good though. Listeners, for anybody who has not been, I think that is good advice. Don't take on, do something, but don't take on, like, for example, co-lead for the San Diego project like I did. My first year. And I remember people kept like thanking me, like, oh, thank you so much, you're doing this thing. I'm like, is it that big of a deal? And then like 3 days into it, I'm like, fuck.
It's a huge deal.
It's like a huge deal.
Oh, well.
Doing a lot of shit.
It was a co-lead for Utopia?
No, for the San Diego regional project.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It wasn't a huge project, but it's still like, as you guys all know, obviously, there's things that are really easy to get done in default world that take forever when you're out there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like trying to coordinate schedules between different people to do the shifts, right? And just having to like ride around on my bike, and like the ground is all fucked up because it had been raining, so it's just all beaten up. So I mean, my ass took a pummeling within 48 hours, in a not fun way at all. It's just, so yeah,
not like that enjoyable bareback from the
I know.
Right,
Obviously over those visuals were.
It was the playa had to break in first.
Thanks, playa.
welcome to my show.
So what ideas came out of that first year? What sort of like thoughts and ideas did you guys have that you immediately decided like next year this is what we're gonna do?
We wanted bigger speakers.
Yeah, that was kind of a de facto thing. I would actually have to say, as kind of like an aside, to one of the largest factors that ended up affecting the direction of our camp and the amount of power that we tried putting into it was that we happened to meet some of the people who would soon become Ego Trip before they started at camp. So a couple of them woke up in our little kiddie pool. And we met them and was like, oh, wow, you guys are from San Diego too? We totally have to work together. And they ended up being the super kids, which were much, much smaller back then. And so our families kind of merged, and they started Ego Trip, and we did what we could to help them. Like, I told them everything I knew about structure and whatnot, but they took with it and ran. I mean, on their trajectory was skyrocketing way beyond what I would want for the camp, but it was also something that was so impressive. And this might be a little bit of ego, but I felt like the camp was kind of a representation of me at large, and perhaps, I mean, everybody kind of feels that, and so we kind of felt like we had to at least keep up.
Yeah.
And so that was massive driving force. I'm sorry?
That was the first year?
And they hadn't started Ego Trip yet.
Wow, yeah.
2012. That was
2012 was their first one? Or
their first one, but we met them as just a normal bunch down the street in 2011, and that's when I was like, you guys have to start a camp. Because they were so well organized already. I was like, guys, like...
Because that's already, that was going to be one of my questions, actually. Like, it does seem like there's this relationship between Ego Trip and Shangri-Lawless, and I was wondering where that started.
Brothers and sisters, really.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's kind of the same, I would say, with a couple of other camps, like Dusty Poon a little bit later, but then the same thing with the Desert Hearts boys. I mean, ever since the beginning, we just happened to be fortunate enough. I would have to say, because of the Super Kids, which really was a collective of a variety of camps, it enabled us to have a very large network where we could kind of piggyback off of each other or bounce ideas or gain resources. That enabled all three of the camps, including the Desert Hearts organization, to really take off. And that was, if that had not happened, Shangri-Lawless probably always would have been a camp that was no more than 40 to 50 people.
Wow.
Relatively simple, not too stressful, but the whole direction changed when we merged with this super horde.
So it's kind of like that thing they say, like you're the sum of your 3 closest friends.
Yeah, totally. You can only hope, right?
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about Super Kids so we know what we're referring to here?
Sure. I came in a little bit later, although now, relatively speaking, quite a while ago. It all started, as far as I know, just with a handful of friends who wanted to create a Facebook group just to organize going out and all hang out together and do everything together. It was probably not more than 15 or 20 people. By the time that we ran into them, there was about 60. Wow. And then the addition of the Shangri-Lawless family inevitably bumped it up to another 80, perhaps, at the time.
So when you guys met, like the whole camp became members, if you will?
No, they.
Do you have to get jumped in?
Oh, it was one at a time. Somebody had to invite you, and it was fairly restrictive. I remember the first time that I was invited, Breyer, who was kind of seen as the Don, immediately was like, "We don't need a Derek." That was the immediate response.
I remember.
Knowing what I know basically about like Machiavellian tactics, I was just like, well, you got to woo the leadership. So it's like, Breyer, you can call me whatever you want, buddy. Blah blah blah. And we became good friends, and then over time, we would introduce more and more of our members, and now it's completely inclusive as far as like Venn diagrams are concerned. Like almost every member of Shangri-Lawless is a super kid technically. It's all kind of gray area nowadays.
Yeah, and there's stupid little politicking on the fringes and stuff that isn't really important. But collectively, everyone sort of pretty much knows each other and knows what's...
Well, are there benefits to being a super kid that is being a Shangri-Lawless member without being a super kid?
The most acute benefit, the most acute benefit of it is just like getting like clued in on like where the cool warehouse parties are popping up on any random
parties.
Time. Yeah, like cave parties. Like, hey, there's like 50 of us. Like, hey, 50 of us are mobbing over to like the cave to like do an underground renegade, and then like you can get clued into that stuff. So I would say that was like the most acute benefit for any particular thing.
And you knew the motto of the Super Kids is "You will never be alone," and that held very much true. It's so large now that it's almost kind of it's like factionalized once again.
Sure.
Just because the limit that human beings have on the number of people you can really connect around.
Yeah,
exactly.
150, I think, is the number.
Hang out with.
Yeah. And so it did help us a lot as far as just having. A lot of the supers and therefore Ego Trip and all these camps, like everybody, a lot of people are very professional. So you gain access to a lot of people with a lot of specific knowledge on certain things, and access to that was a huge thing.
Yeah, and that's stories like that are interesting because like a lot of people would say like, oh, okay, so it's just people you're partying with, but like that partying is a place where people are networking and connecting and bonding with each other. So there's bonds being forged at that cave party that are finding their way onto the playa and may eventually plant the seeds for an art project that many people have enjoyed that led from that random experience at a cave party.
And even more directly than that, I'll dovetail this into like sort of my meeting Derek and the Super Kids in the first place. So I think it was 2011. I just got back from the first burn. I found out that they were doing decompression parties. I was all about it. I was all about going everything and everywhere. And me and my friend Brian ended up camping behind the Super Kids. And I think that was like the first like Super Kid like painted sign like made camp like thing. So we were just camping right next to you guys. That's where I met you for the first time. That's where I met like Breyer and Katie and Justin, like all the guys that like Abby, all of them all at the same time. And like the one poignant like thing that I remember the most about the Super Kids from that particular weekend was the hyphy burritos.
Oh god.
Hyphy burritos?
You remember the hyphy burritos?
Probably should not.
That's
a terrible thing.
That's a terrible thing. Yeah, it's a terrible idea. But basically the hyphy burritos. Yeah, so it's like you take like shrooms and you take like shrooms and MDMA and you'd wrap and you smush them together and then wrap them up in a fruit roll up. It's terrible. It's awful going down. It's awful coming back up. Yeah. And it just wrecks you. And so like I just remember all these people just getting all excited. And I think they were just excited because of the name. Yeah. Like that was the only thing that they were jazzed about. Hyphy burrito. And then like everyone started eating all these things and like everyone was just fucking spaced out and completely. So that was my first introduction to the Supers in the first place, which I thought was hilarious. And then I've been friends with them sort of like just friends with people that were in the Super Kids, but not necessarily like a part of myself. So I would get clued into a few of the parties, a few of the things. The people that I were hanging out with at the time, they sort of like viewed them a little bit as sort of like a lawless anarchist kind of group of like, people that all they wanted to do was just party, which is True, really. I mean, in most contexts of the words, top to bottom. And then it was only when my friend Jim introduced me to Leeward a couple years later, that's when I started really getting sort of ingrained with the rest of the culture. So I actually ended up getting a job through my friend who was a part of the Super Kids. Jim, he connected me with my new now friend.
I rest my case.
Yeah, Leeward, exactly. And I was like not working at the time. I just quit like a really hectic corporate job. I was doing programming for Zynga. They have a studio up in Carlsbad. So I was like working like 10 to 12 hours a day. They were firing like 20% of their employees like internationally. Like it was just a really hectic time. And I just got over it and I quit. I had saved up some cash and I just took some time off and quit. And then completely unsolicited, he introduces me to Lee, and Lee's like, hey, I'm starting this business up. I really need a good programmer. We were talking for like 15 minutes. It was the best job interview I've ever had. We sat down for like a sandwich within 15 minutes. We were best friends talking about all these other cool things about Burning Man, about all this other stuff that we wanted to do, all these other things. And I started working for him the next day. And then from that point on, I started getting way more connected with everyone. That's kind of how I got introduced to Shangri-Lawless at large. But yeah, both in terms of like social networks and professional networks, the connections and networking.
So thankful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Super, super thankful.
Yeah. So, what year was it that you got connected with Shangri-Lawless?
So I think I asked to officially join your camp actually it was before last year, right? So it would have been like 2014, I think, like December 2014, I think is probably when I would have asked to like hop in. And then I'd been hanging out and working with Lee for like last year and a half, like leading up to that point.
All right, let me backtrack then before 2014. So second year, you said that Ego Trip is setting up now, and you guys are upping your game.
And we villaged that next year, actually.
And what does villaging entail?
Villaging entails basically two camps collaborating and ideally sharing resources.
2 minimum or 2 period?
Oh, no, as many as physically possible, I suppose.
Minimum of 2.
Yeah, I guess as many as you can put together that would be an organizational, like it was something that you're
It says loose is the definition of several.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and I always had this very overly grandiose idea that, you guys create a camp, we can create a camp, with our powers combined type of a thing.
What can we do?
Yeah,
planet.
And it was okay, but that actually ended up kind of constraining us quite a bit because I think that we both had very different ideas of direction.
Let me go back to the beginning real quick. It's okay. So you two decide that you want to do a village, and then you have to actually apply through Burning Man org in order to make that happen.
Yes. And so
what was the process like back then?
So back then, I don't know if it's changed much, but at the time, I would submit a application as a village. And I would have to submit the entire plan for the entire village. But each camp within the village still had a separate application. So for Shangri-Lawless, the village application was the same as the Shangri-Lawless application. And then Ego Trip also had to put in an application. And so every camp within the village still has to be accepted on its own grounds.
What are the benefits of being a village?
Well, I guess basically to share resources, for example, generators, maybe you can kind of pull resources to bring in larger amounts of water, buy porta potties, what have you, or even to throw events. And that was the idea. I
mean, like as far as like going through the application process, is that just so that you can be placed together?
Yeah, really.
Okay.
And to be able to then therefore, have a common pool of resources.
Right.
There's actually a certain point that you get at too recently. I don't know if they're when they started doing this, but for the Sunset Trip Village, which is a bunch of the LA burner camps all together. I think it's like Charlie, Dirty Beetles, Tasty Noodles, and maybe a couple others that I can't remember. Once they got to like a critical mass of like 200 people, like collectively, all of a sudden they got access to a 50,000 watt generator provided by the city.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So like once you hit a certain threshold, then all of a sudden they start being like, okay, actually now we'll send like the truck over to like service your guys' porta potties like way sooner. We'll like hook you up with a generator, and you get more resources the more you're building them together. I don't know how many people you have before that becomes a thing, but all three of them have sound camps and like stuff and big sound systems that they were playing, so it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was I was talking to Leo the other day, who's all super stoked, or he was asking us if we had access to a 50,000 watt generator because like 30 of them just ran their air conditioners like all day in all their vans and Tasty Noodles from that thing.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so you guys so you set up a village with Ego Trip, and what was that experience like?
It was great, but we really couldn't figure out how to get it to work well. Because we ended up creating our individual structures and our services side by side with a connecting piece, and we thought that would work really quite well, but it didn't. Simply because I think that what each camp had to offer was so vastly different. It's I was had a great time being next to your friends, but it didn't really. it just didn't really mesh all that well, and I feel like it kind of constrained both camps because you had to think about how you would, all the things that you're doing, you have to look at how that affects the other camp.
Yeah.
How you can try to get that to work with the other camp. And we tried that for 1 or 2 years.
2 years. The first year worked okay. Because we were a little bit on the same page of still throwing day parties, which is what we started out doing, day happy hours. And they, for the most part, were doing day with us. So alongside, they were providing bigger music, we were still providing bar, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
In 2013, we moved up in the city.
Yeah.
Closer to the front. And
9 o'clock. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
But then it became like we were still on a kind of we're still going to be doing happy hours, and they wanted to do more as they're moving more towards their sound camp. Camp. Then it was like they're doing a night and we're doing a day, and
but we have to staff it at night, kind of, because we're connected. But it's not really. It was more strain, really.
Try and make lights to keep on at night, so we weren't just like a weird rape den.
It does look like that when the lighting is poor. Yeah, it's not great. I would have gone to opium den, but
I think that's where that inevitable kind of
so is the concern, I mean, it says that
it kind of happened, which was, all mutual. It was no problem.
Sure. I don't doubt that. You guys do have a good relationship. It's pretty well known. But what is so if for example, if the camp in your village wants to do a night party and you don't want to do a night party, what logistics do you need to put into place? Like, do you just need to have like staff there to kind of make sure people aren't having bareback sex?
If you want to have, it's like, no sex on the trampoline was really the only rule.
Yeah.
So the whole bareback thing was really just a joke, but mostly it was because it was in the middle of the bar, and it was making some people uncomfortable. Besides that, it was like all good.
Yeah, it wasn't even night where you could hide it.
Very abrasive.
It was. Well, yeah, literally.
I'm sorry, guys.
So it's just kind of the thing. Well, it's like, do we staff? And then if we staff, then we need lights, and then we need more gas. We need like power, so there's more shifts. And then if we don't staff, well, then we're gonna have to like lock up all the booths, lock up the speakers. It's just quite a bit more work. That you just kind of have to consider all those things because, we want to always run a very respectable camp that not only follows the principles but doesn't offers a safe space at all times, even if we're not always there. And so, you just kind of had to be out for that when you have a whole bunch of people partying next door. You can't just leave all your gear in the dark sitting there nowadays, especially, unfortunately. But
especially towards the end of the week.
So it ends up being like there just needs to be a lot of communication between all your village. And making sure that you kind of are all on the same page and maybe offering the same types of experiences at the same time, or just ways to deal with them so that way everything runs efficiently and safely, smoothly.
Yeah, no, this is a topic of interest, I'm certain, to people who are somewhere through their camp development journeys who might be thinking about villages. So I love stories like this because they get to get like some background info and perhaps save some time.
Burner Podcast.
Hey, this is Arash, host of Burner Podcast. The Burner Podcast crew, the staff, the team, has built this fabulous recording booth. It's called Cabina Exuro. On the outside, it's an it's this cool shape that I can't really pronounce. But on the inside, it looks like a 1940s radio station. And when you sit down, you follow the prompts and record a quick little story. Selected stories will be shared at burnerpodcast.com and on future episodes of Burner Podcast. Cabino Exuro is located in Playground at 2 and D. Trouble remembering 2 and D? Think throwing up a peace sign and dick. So we're at Peace and Dick. Come by, record a story. Your recordings will be a gift that'll transcend the playa. Also, please refrain from having sex in our booth. We're asking you really, really nicely. Cabino Exuro, located at Playground at 2 and D.
Welcome home.
Were there any other logistics challenges when you're building a village with somebody other than partying scheduling?
There are advantages, so I should certainly note that. We were able to share power. Camp planning becomes quite a bit more difficult. And obviously we can talk about that part later. We ended up villaging with Wet Dreams later on, and it worked out much better. But nonetheless, you still had to think about the camp plan for the entire group. And so in the case when we did it the first 2 years, luckily, the Ego Trippers, there's a lot of very organized people there. So, Justin and Katie and everybody got me a great camp plan, and then I could kind of keep mine. And we just kept it side by side for simplicity. Yeah. And we didn't really, besides sharing some of the larger resources, we didn't stick our fingers in each other's business as far as dues or anything like that. But another one really large concern, if you want to talk about villaging, is your application does become harder to accept, not only because it's 2 camps, but also because you're taking up more space, so you need a bigger spot, depending on what your needs are. And then lastly, you also have to be worried about the moop sweeps at the end of the week. You have to know that those people are going to be on the ball. Totally. Because had an Ego Trip, like all the Super Kids are amazing at cleanup. Like, we've cleaned beaches. There's a highway that's named after the Super Kids because of restoration. So thankfully, we've always not had a problem with that. But you do need to be concerned about it, because if the camp that you happen to village with drops a deuce on their end, your whole village is going to get penalized or removed from the list of potential camps. Yeah. And so, there is that to consider. But there are also benefits, And in the following year, or not the following year, but then 1 year after that, I think we ended up with Wet Dreams, and it was literally a complete dream. And probably, I would say, maybe even the height of all that Shangri-Lawless as a village will ever be.
It's definitely an ideal relationship. Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. That was a whole different ballgame.
So. Everybody got along, and the camps really just worked. They just really worked together.
Yeah, we had a similar idea. Like, obviously, if you don't mind me jumping forward to the villaging with Wet Dreams, sure. Wet Dreams provided a dome where it was a much more peaceful space that would kind of like hold a lot of talks. And so it gave us quite a few benefits as far as the application was concerned, that we were not just a party camp, which we wanted to be, both Shangra and Lawless. Yeah. So we kind of gained that benefit, and we could share the burden in one sense, where it was like, well, during a party, Shangri-Lawless can be the main bar, and we can focus on that. Whereas Wet Dreams will just kind of provide like this ultra cool lounge space, and wherever they might be either lacking or just not have the resources to push in a certain direction, if we had greater resources in that, then we could kind of shoulder that, whereas they could kind of take care of, some of the elements that they were really good at. And so that was one of the reasons it worked amazingly that year, which was 14, I think.
14 and 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, 15 as well.
14, man, it was so blown away. It completely changed my feeling of what villaging was like. And at that point, we were 30,000 square feet and 100 people, which was pretty massive. And it worked really, really well. I mean, I love those guys to death. So
the villaging is very much, it's very yin and yang. It's very a relationship between partners. The way, you might have one person in the partnership be really good at numbers and accounting, and then the other person in the partnership is better at socializing, and then so totally. That makes a good couple.
Yeah, totally.
The girlfriend's good at like scheduling the parties, but like if you're both terrible with money, then you're both fucked. One of you needs to be good with that.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be sort of a series of like complementary and like things that sort of can balance each other out, definitely. And we absolutely hit it out of the park with Wet Dreams for sure.
That's incredible. Yeah. How did your membership and dues sort of practices? By the way, anything you can't answer, I don't know why you couldn't. But anything you don't want to answer, it's okay.
We're open book on it.
Sure, I would imagine. Yeah. Okay, so how has that changed from the earlier years till now?
This is probably the single greatest challenge about running a camp, period, is dues and contribution, and balancing that out and trying to make it fair, but also trying to make sure that the machine runs. I'm not sure exactly the changes you've made. I'm taking my first year off in 8 years this year. So
wow.
These guys are now running the camp. We're running the camp before, but now you're full bore. So I don't know what changes you've made, but that was always the hardest part, because there's always going to be people who are contributing more, like with physical work. And then when it comes down to the money, it's like oftentimes it's the people who are working the hardest who are also contributing roughly the same amount of money. And that, when you're really stressed out, that can kind of become a point of conflict. And so, I guess I could go into what I feel like so far has worked the best as far as dues are concerned, but I feel like a little bit more importantly would have been the membership. And one of the things that I feel like we excelled at was we were not restrictive about the way that we added members, but we wanted to make sure that anybody that was added as a member, they felt like they were joining something that meant something. We kind of made them jump through a couple of arbitrary hoops, like making an introduction video, and then always somebody is, if you want somebody to join the camp, you're their sponsor. and they're the sponsoree, right? And you are responsible for making sure that they know and are kept up. And if something goes wrong with that person, it's on the current member.
That's some pressure.
And again, it sounds worse than it's really meant to be, but it instills this like sense of being and belonging and like importance to what you're doing. And I think that that's the only thing that's actually allowed Shangri-Lawless to survive this far, and also not growing too fast. Like we would only take maybe another 10 members a year to maybe 15 as far as full-fledged members. We obviously kind of had a guest system as well. For people who, a younger brother or sister who just wants to come and experience it, it's like there's obviously no way we're going to shut out one of our members' siblings or parents.
Sure.
So there was kind of a guest thing, but making sure that the membership is important and making sure that there is like communication and somebody responsible for that individual as far as inundation was absolutely critical towards the survival of the camp.
Where did the inspiration behind that come from? That system. And I'll give you a random example. Because when I had Mikey Lyon on this show, one of the most fascinating parts of that story was that a lot of the inspiration behind Desert Hearts came from Wu-Tang.
No, really?
Yeah. The idea of having like a collective and everybody being their own stars, but then like coming together. Yeah. That was, because Mikey's background is hip hop.
I didn't know that either. God,
yeah, he's actually pretty good spinning vinyl.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he cut his teeth.
Yeah, Mikey don't fuck around.
I don't know, honestly. I mean,
what you just described right now is a very like actualized philosophy on an organization, a team, how you come in, who you come in.
We were really trying to make like a tribe.
Yeah.
Like
family, really.
Family organization. We've seen a lot of camps that are just, come in, pay your dues, and there's just a kind of a small core structure that runs it. They just need to fuel it. So we wanted more of, really a family oriented affair, and even
it's not to say, by the way, that that's like an incorrect way, because that's kind of how Dusty Poon does it. They're like, here's the charge, and then here's the members.
That was just ours. It was just like, we want to be able to say, we can all throw a party together and have fun on our own, be our own, network and things like that. Not just within Burning Man or a festival, but beyond that into our day-to-day lives. There's a whole group of us actually having dinner right now that we're missing because somebody's in from out of town.
I'm sorry.
So
no, don't ever apologize.
No.
Technically, they didn't tell me about that until this afternoon.
Yeah, I know. We had this schedule, and it was fine.
They'll understand.
Probably we'll meet up with them later, maybe. But that's the kind of thing we wanted to foster, is the ability to have this, tight-knit connection. And we do have that within, let's say, the Super Kids, but now we have just this little tighter circle that's just for us.
Because you'll never make it.
That.
Yeah. It is a fraternity.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. And, honestly, after being out there for 9 or 10 days and the amount of work and energy you put into everything and whatever else you're doing, you need to have that deep of a connection with those people to be able to rely on those people to finish the thing off and get home safe.
Did you? So that's what I'm asking. Is that like what you're describing? That's all very thought out. Was there? Is it just thoughts that you had in your head that just kind of popped up, or were you looking at other organizations and cultures? And
I think really. I mean, it was
initially when we started, it was just a ragtag group of
we were so small
of these friends.
So how do you keep that?
So that's what. And I think that's what we went to as we started growing the next year, and certainly by our third year, we added a lot of people in our third year.
How many people in the third year?
Almost doubled, because honestly, Shangri-Lawless on its first year and even its second, we probably had about 12 people in San Diego and 40 people were camping with us from all over the U.S. And so that was why, the dues and the membership was such a difficult thing. There was a particular point where I was concerned that the camp wasn't going to exist after the second year because we simply didn't have the numbers in San Diego. And so there was this significant recruiting drive where I felt like I went after a lot of the people, like I went after Nick and like I went after Ryan, that I knew that there was people who would be down, that I could get into this, that I could also rely on, because otherwise the camp simply wasn't going to survive, because we were burning out by the second or third year already. And if it wasn't for bringing in such important blood like that and caring about each individual member and enabling them to make it their own from the get-go. It's like, you're joining Shangri-Lawless, but don't feel like you just have to tiptoe around the thing. It's like, what do you want to do? Ryan is a perfect example of somebody who has taken that ball and ran that bitch into the end zone and pissed on the pole at the end like a dog. It's like, I'm just running that shit. It's amazing. And without people like Ryan and Nick, the whole thing would have collapsed a long time ago. And I think it was really just when it started out with 12 friends, that tacit knowledge and the amount of passion and how much you care for each other. In order to replicate that, you had to grow small, and every member that you bring in had to matter, and you had to give them the space to make it so that they felt like it was theirs and they would care. You know what I mean? And it would become their love. I try to always tell people, I'm like, this camp is your camp as much as it ever will be mine. You know, because I would have been dead in the dust without you guys, like, for sure. Yeah. I don't really know. I mean, I've read a lot of books about different business things. Some of it could have come from that, but modern businesses aren't really run quite like that anyway. So I don't know.
Well, and at this point too, like, you know, originally the camp was just, you know, half of a small U-Haul, and it was pretty easy to set up. You know, like, so at this point, like, any of the people that are coming up that I mean, hopefully will run the camp, because not everybody can do it forever. I mean, they're coming into like
a big thing,
you know, lots of stuff and lots of moving pieces and managing people and stuff like that. So it's really important at that point to have solidified the, you know, friendships and, you know, be able to have the tough conversations with your cohorts to be able to, you know, really lay it out on the line. Like, hey, you know, shit's fucked up right now. We got to get it fixed. And then that's what we're lucky enough really to have with not only the two guys here present, but really, you know, our whole camp, who's when it's good, it's great. But when it gets tough, you know, we really see people pitching in and saying, hey,
that's where you see
I'm
people's
really
character.
willing to help. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's super fun.
What can you give an example of a tough conversation that you've had to have?
Quite a few actually.
Sure.
I think that what's really, really important for an organization like this is to write out a set of principles. And I have to give this out to my boy Cass and Trenner, because he brought up the idea to create a culture club. It's like a committee within Shangri-Lawless that works to serve the members. You know, if there's any social problems, or if somebody's having a hard time, or, you know, and also Camp Schwag, you know, they kind of handle all the fun stuff and make sure that the group is cohesive. And that was a bigger move than I ever thought I could have imagined. And they developed a set of 10 principles that were then ratified by the camp of what it means to us. Not just the 10 principles of Burning Man, but who are we and what's important to us. And not only does that make it very easy to hand somebody who's coming in, because there's so much history, it's like we forget to tell people that, well, this is the way, why the things are the way they are. But if you kind of have this outline, people can see it, people can agree to it. And then if there's ever any problem, it's like, here's why we have a problem. Because, like, you know, this is one of our principles. And if we're not following this principle, here's the damage it does to the camp. And it makes it very easy for us to say, you're not following this principle. And so, you know, we're kind of having this conversation with you, and we want you to be with us, but you have to run with these principles. And if you don't, then, you know, we give them the honorable out. You know, it's like, you're still welcome with us if you want to follow these principles, but if not, no hard feelings, and we can part ways. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be this hyper negative, like, get the fuck out of camp thing. It's never come to that. It's always been, thank God, because we have a lot of very smart people who've done a lot of business related stuff like that that I was able to learn from. And we have had a couple of times where we've had to ask people to leave simply because there was kind of a lot of friction between two individual members. And, you know, inevitably it was like, well, you didn't follow this principle once, and then after it sat down and had a lunch with you, you know, you kind of did it again. It's like, you understand why I'm doing this, and I'm so sorry, but, you know, we have to think about the health of the entire camp. And we've had that. It's just like conflict between individuals. And so that's happened a couple of times. And then also mitigating negativity is a really huge thing. And I'm prone, much like anybody else, towards falling into negative thinking and worrying about all this shit. But if you have somebody in a position of leadership who's like, you know, just not seeing the positives and kind of in this get up mode, you need to deal with that as soon as physically possible, because that will infect the rest of your camp so fast.
It's a virus.
So, it forces it just increases and accelerates the burnout from everybody else. Like, it just takes all that negativity and just amplifies it. And because
I'm sure there's been a lot of times where each and every one of us we're talking very positively to guys, we can do this, here we go. Even if you don't believe it yourself all the way, man, if there have been a lot of moments where if I had doubt on my face, I feel like the whole thing would have gone to shit. Yeah. But it was like, even though I didn't necessarily believe it, you know, it was like, guys, we can do this. We can do it. Just keep going. It's like, you guys are, we're
Learn to deep breathe.
That's important. It's sort of like realizing that if only 2 or 3 more people were more excited than you about something, then you would have the motivation to do it. So even if you're not motivated initially, if you can just convince other people to be, then you can ride their coattails of energy and just keep on taking
lead by example. Really,
exactly.
You know, it's like, don't ever ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do or that you haven't. You know.
Yeah.
And then they will do that out of love for you because you worked hard for them, and so therefore the good people that you brought in will work just as hard for you back, and that's the glue that kept it all together. Really.
Seriously, like the past 10 to 15 minutes of everything we've been talking about, you could have said the exact same things about my fraternity at San Diego State.
Really? Yeah. And there's a lot of frat guys who've come out, and that leadership's hard.
You're actually, I think actually 3 of us now is probably the odd man.
Wait, so you got frat guys?
Yeah, I was president.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. No, because like we were describing, like the committee thing, like we had in our frat, we had the Brotherhood Monitor.
Yeah.
And their job was that to like go make sure everybody's like okay, like try to plan funner events so people are bonding within each other. If there is, you know, our set of bylaws, if you're breaking a certain bylaw or a certain principle of the fraternity, now we have something that we can talk about. You know, like, okay, here's something you broke, rather than just like, I'm pissed off and I can't quite articulate why. You know, like you have something on paper that you can talk about.
You know, we didn't do that till year 3, I think.
Yeah, it was later.
You know,
so it must have been from people like yourselves that actually had that influence, and another one of our friends, Matt Lights.
I mean, it used to be the same arguments every single year about like, how much are we charging for dues? What are we doing? How do we add people?
He's
when
worked more and
blah, 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 all this stuff. So now we have a clearly written, you know, things get tweaked, and there's certainly all one-off situations on special cases, but we have, for the most part, a general written down philosophy of the principles and how we're adding members and how dues are done and how participation you start at a high number, and through participation you get so much off per task you perform, so you can drop your dues quite a bit if you show up and participate in things.
Yeah, which was something that we didn't come to for very long, and it's a lot more maintenance.
That's a fascinating system.
Somebody has to do all the paperwork with that. And so basically we have a very high-end top dues, about almost $400 was at least last year. And so if you're coming in hot, like you've never been to the burn and you're not going to participate, whether by choice or otherwise, then, you know, you're paying a lot in dues. And Shangri-Lawless has never been a camp that actually provides a lot of services to its own members. We don't have organized meals. We just all cook for each other sometimes. We've got a great shower, but that money is not used back towards the members. The money is used towards Shangri-Lawless and providing to the camp. And some people have not really understood that coming in, just that we're guests. And they're like, well, why am I paying $400? I'm like, well, everybody else is paying $300 and they're busting their ass for 9 months. You know, and so what we ended up doing was, you know, we started this very top end, and for every event, like the truck unloading, that's knocks $25 off of your dues.
Volunteering for fundraising, you know, volunteering for all
building
year.
Things, you know, and you can drop it down to a minimum, and then you can kind of still average out your budget's always been a pain in the ass too.
Yeah,
so.
Well, because so how does the math on that work out? Like, if everybody comes in and does a lot of things, do you ever run into the concern that there isn't enough money in the budget?
We have a floor to that number.
Okay.
Yeah. No less than $200, and so 200 by 40 is $8,000, and that basically would cover our storage and our transportation and the alcohol for the parties roughly. And so then anything else we had was extra that we could use towards projects, and it's kind of tough when. So we would have people give dues throughout the year in portions so that we at least had some money to get things going. But it is kind of tough because inevitably people are taking money out of their own pockets and then kind of getting reimbursed after the fact, because you really don't know what your budget's going to be until the very end of it. But it's worked out so far just because we know we're very diligent about writing down all of our costs. And so we know exactly how much we spent last year and exactly what areas. You know, divided up into logistics, divided up into this and this and that and that.
I have a good projection for this
year. We have phenomenal treasury abilities in our midst for sure. In accounting.
More or less. I mean, we still always come out in the whole.
I mean, there's a fixed cost that we have pretty much nailed down on what it takes to like get the camp there, store it for the rest of the year, buy the essential odd miscellaneous stuff that you're going to need to replace.
Yeah.
Always gas.
Which I'm just saying the bookkeeping is like we do a really, really diligent job of the bookkeeping.
It's all open.
That's why we started having fundraisers, because we just to add anything fun after the fact was you had to have a couple more $1,000 a year to
can't get bigger speakers.
Really
can't get bigger speakers with the same price.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And I imagine the other fail safes that you guys have in place on the kinds of people that you allow into the camp protects the camp from attracting the kind of people who just want to like throw money at the problem and just not show up for anything.
Well, there's always a couple of those.
People that we do love just to throw money at the problem a little.
Hello.
We encourage effort way more than cash, absolutely.
But sometimes we need the cash, and we've definitely allowed people to just kind of set up shop and pay money. And, it's not like these people are long-time burners usually, and so it's not like there's ever problems ever created. And it has been a struggle to convince everybody that, and at least in my view, it's like, guys, if somebody wants to throw $400 at the project, it's like, and they'll take up a little bit of space. We've always had more than enough space since we were turned into a village.
Yeah.
Burning Man has blessed us with a massive chunk of space in the greatest part of the greatest city on earth, luckily. So space we always kind of had. Yeah. And so that was like, well, I know it's kind of renting, and that might go go against some of our principles that we had in the beginning, but in the end it's like, do you want this ship to sail or not? Like how much glory do you want?
But we're still voting in quality people. We're not just taking any random, like, hey, I know 4 guys from Florida and we're gonna take them.
Yeah, we've never done
God,
that.
Shouldn't take one guy from Florida. Sorry, Florida.
Or an Austin.
It could be Florida.
But,
Florida.
We're not taking anybody that we haven't personally met or know and understand that they're going to be
one of our best moved to Florida recently. So sorry, Jules, love you.
Oh God, why? Okay. So Shangri-Lawless, I would say, as an outside observer, I think you guys are one of those camps that's like almost as well known for your fundraising parties as you guys actually are for the camp.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's pretty
so.
Is that something you're aware of?
I mean, coming from someone that's on the fundraising committee, that's really good to know. Although I don't feel that impression that everybody knows that we're really known for our fundraisers.
I didn't say everybody, but
from the outside,
there is the Shangri-Lawless brand. I feel like is associated with a good fundraising party. It seems like there's good design involved, and you guys book good talent.
That's actually one of our sweet. No, that's actually been one of our overriding principles, because we didn't really make anything on our last one, which is a bit of a bummer. And one of the ways that I was trying to console,
that was the first one we ever did make money.
Yeah, and one of the ways that I was trying to sort of console and try to be like a leader, just be like, okay, you know what? So we didn't really go anywhere with this one, but we had honestly we had a great time. Everyone had awesome fun. It was one of the most fun parties we ever did, and we're really improving like the brand.
What was the last one? Was
Lonely? No, it was actually at Music Box.
Okay.
And it was with Lonely Boy and Fritz Carlton, who's both are coming out of the Desert Hearts label, sort of affiliated with those crew. And they both played, and I also played a little bit as well, the opening set. So I think we had 3 people, and Justin Campbell 4. So we had 4 of us play at the Music Box, and it was just it was an absolutely
great time.
It was a fun
super fun party. Had like the photo booth, just like party was raging. I had a whole bunch of people from out of town that came to visit, so I was just on cloud 9 the entire night.
And we had a promo video.
Yeah, we made promo videos. Yeah. We've been advertising. We've been really taking a lot of control, and I have to give Dad a lot of credit for that. He's been he's sort of trying to learn a lot of the industry and the business in terms of getting musical acts and producing them and promoting them and trying to sort of make a career and a living in that space. And a lot of his knowledge and energy has been well received by the rest of the camp, and it's been helping to promote some of that. So I'm glad. I'm glad that's at least someone's perception on the outside, but that's what we are shooting for that. So it's really, that's the first person that wasn't related to me that was I was expecting a positive thing from, that just gave me that kind of compliment. So that was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was why didn't you guys break even?
We just the venue
you
was
did
a little
break
bit,
even.
we basically
did not break even.
We basically broke even. We'll just say we're basically at zero. Basically at zero. Yeah, nobody's homeless. We're basically at zero. But for that particular thing, there was only a few number of dates that we could get that we're trying to do. We were trying to find a newer, cooler venue, so we had a whole bunch of these requirements for how we wanted to throw the party and what we wanted to do.
Not cooler, because Spin's fantastic.
Yeah, Spin's fantastic.
It's great, but it's
different.
like we just wanted to switch it up and see if we'd be able to create a draw.
So we basically made a few different decisions based on things that we wanted to get done ahead of time, sort of like ideological ideas that we wanted. So it was like we wanted to try at a new venue, something that we thought could attract new people. We wanted to try to do something we hadn't done before, and we just sort of wanted to explore and see if we could push something really big and get it to fire off in a really big way. So we kind of took a few extra gambles that we wouldn't normally have necessarily taken. And it was the same weekend as Movement in Detroit.
And LIB, right?
And LIB. And
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's Memorial Day weekend.
Where the fuck was I?
Yeah, we ended up picking up those
Have a
two.
good time, I hope.
I know I partied that weekend.
But yeah,
where.
so basically we ended up picking that date because it was like the best date out of only a small select number of dates that we could get. And we're like, well, we also have to get it done before a certain deadline, so we have time to do our projects, so we can do this. And it was the only event that we had sort of in the long shot, so it sort of needed to work. So we just kept putting more and more eggs into one basket, and then took a couple of calculated risks, and they didn't negatively pay off. They just didn't pay off.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but the end result is that we did end up a really, really, really fun event. We had a great time. We got a lot of positive feedback from it, minus the fact that we just didn't really make anything with it. But it was a great time. We had a fantastic time. Yeah, help the brand.
What year is this going to be for Shangri-Lawless?
Six.
This will be the 6th year at the Burn. What's happening this year? How are there any new plans?
Let me know. I have no idea. It's remarkable.
I mean, how much should we divulge? I mean, what? Yeah, like.
Well, you're more than welcome to still buy a ticket for the fundraiser that we just had.
Yeah, we're still accepting. Actually, the Eventbrite is still on. We're still accepting cash for that.
No, we're gonna do a few other fun things. You know, it kind of just depends on where we end up with our budget and everything like that. I mean, at the end of the day, if we bring back exactly what we had last year, it'll be gorgeous and beautiful. We'll have a great time. We'll still be able to throw some parties and still have the same vibes and still bring in musical talents and still throw a couple parties as we do every year, and it'll be flawless and beautiful. You know, if we get a little extra cash, we'll spruce up some places. We'll spruce it up a little anyway. So we're always constantly trying to innovate, change, and make things not only easier for us to set up, but also more visually impactful.
And not require an almost 30-foot truck.
Yeah, we're really working on that.
I think that subfloor is going to help out a whole bunch.
Yeah.
It may severely. So I don't know if you've seen the new storage subfloor.
So building a second false floor to your storage unit's a great idea, guys.
Yeah.
Logistics and storage is
awesome.
literally like
It's awesome.
Almost the biggest cost of
building a
going to
second
bring in.
false floor.
We built it. Yeah. So I built. I'll go ahead and sort of elaborate because it was my project, but I had a bunch of this. I had a bunch of scrap wood in my backyard, and one of the things that Nick and I have always been talking about, I think separately for two different reasons or whatever, but building subfloors. So that you can store things under the floor and then stack things on top has been, at least from one of the camps that I was with previous, a really good way of compacting a whole bunch of space. So this last camp that I used to camp with, the Melons, they're based out of Chicago and sort of all over the place. Drew, who's the leader of it, is so crazily into planning and organizing to the exact like bottom detail that he would have everybody ship their bikes to him in boxes, put all of their gear and everything in small 50-gallon, like easily stacked and sizable things, have them all pay small amounts of money. That would all go to fund the truck to put everything in. He built a false floor, so like a few metal beams kind of raising it up about 5 or 6 inches off the ground, and then either dye bond or plywood, I think, on top of that, and setting it so all the shade canopy poles and everything slide underneath. So the entire back of the rider truck is just all these poles slide underneath on a platform with a whole bunch of perfectly shaped, exactly sized boxes from top to bottom. It looked like, something coming out of like a shipping container that had been put in professionally by loading crew. So I got the idea for that subfloor from him. Nick also brought it up as well. I had a bunch of scrap wood in my backyard. So a bunch of 4x6 inch posts. I bought a couple sheets of plywood, and then I made a bunch of little risers on all these sheets of plywood and lifted an entire, let's say, I think it's about 10 by 10.
10 by 20.
10. No, I built a 10 by 10 altogether, technically. Yeah, or maybe it's a 10 by 10. Yeah, it's a 10 by 10, and then I have an extra 2-foot section. But basically, I just built a piece of plywood, stuck a bunch of risers on the bottom so that we could slide poles in underneath, and I built them all in 2-foot by 8-foot sections so that they can fit inside the storage unit. Be pulled out, fit inside the truck, so the truck can also benefit from the same subfloor storage pull technique underneath. Then when they're on the playa, those 10 sheets or 6 sheets of 2x8 lifted 6 inches up make a 6-foot by 8-foot stage for the DJ, as well as
I didn't know that.
an 18-inch high by 2-foot by 8-foot long bench for the back of camp.
That's fucking impressive.
You dirty girl.
Yeah, so it's like a multi-piece, all those things. And the cool thing is it's dramatically increased the amount of space that we have in the storage thing. Whereas if we really packed it, we could probably take our whole 10 by 20, we could probably compress it to a 10 by 10. If we needed to.
Wow.
That's how much space we ended up getting.
Storage
out of
is
it.
a pain.
So if we could
Maximizing
drop,
efficiency in order to bring the sexier party.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
learning how to make furniture and do things like that, which
Yeah.
maximize space, flat pack things more. I mean, it creates
Everything's-
a ton of
We've
space.
custom built every single piece of furniture that's
From our couches to our bar to
like our
floor.
showers. Yeah, the showers, playa tech, all these things are like easy to break apart pieces that are really useful, and that's. And if we can bring down from the 26-foot truck, if we get down to a 16-foot truck, we save like 60. Yeah, we save like $1,000 by dropping down to the next scale of truck.
Not even
down.
including gas. I would
Yeah.
think.
Oh, yeah. And then the gas would probably be a little bit more as well. So that alone, if we can end up doing some of that, maybe. Yeah. Anyway, so there's really good potential that we can save a huge amount that way.
God, there's so much about Burning Man that works as like an analogy of how like the rest of the world and society can operate, and like one of them, like this, what you're describing right now is the same way that all technology keeps progressing. It keeps becoming more affordable and smaller. So like you're working at ways to make Shangri-Lawless more affordable and smaller, so you can pack more power and punch into it.
Yeah, because we're trying to be like, okay, well, it's really expensive having to spend this much money on storage in a truck every year. So if we can just do like,
like half the budget.
$200 to try to like reduce that by 60%, that's a huge win.
I mean, and part of that culture is like, you're trying to give back to the environment, not be such a
not taking so much space,
not use as much fuel and not use as much space, and all this stuff, and use less product to make as much as you can. So
Totally.
I think hopefully we're following along with.
At some point we'll just be able to move off of like gas powered generators, just have a bunch of hippies powering bicycle pedals.
Oh, like a giant rat wheel?
Yeah.
How have you not thought of
Have a giant rat wheel powering the sound system. That'd be a way to do it.
What? Okay, so how many members does Shangri-Lawless now have?
Well, there's active, and there's probably about 90 people in the Facebook group who at one point or another have camped with us.
Yeah.
And active, I mean, typically it would range between 40 and 60, but last year we brought more than we'd ever had. That was more crafted than we'd ever had, with 24 people for a whole 30,000 square foot village, basically.
Yeah.
Which was, I mean, pound for pound, I have to feel like I was proud that I think that pound for pound we probably were one of the hardest hitting camps on the playa, period.
Yeah.
But that's just because we happen to have been able to spend so much time, and the 24 people that were going, I mean, it's like we've been through it. Yeah.
What is a piece of advice, each one of you, that you, if you could go back in time to the first year of Shangri-Lawless, what is a piece of advice you would give younger you?
There's so many things.
We'll pick one.
Couches are very dangerous. Do not let somebody fall asleep with a cigarette on it.
Oh, thanks for taking the best one.
No, that's. I mean, that was.
Did you guys have a couch catch on fire?
So can I tell the story really quick, guys? It's
Please do.
really good.
It's a fuck your couch story? All right.
Couch got fucked story. So for 2012, we built a Mayan temple that was a little 2-story 20 by 20 wooden structure that was really, really cool. We all got these elaborate Mayan god outfits, and to inundate the new members of camp, we also have a lot of stuff that goes on during Burning Man to kind of bring the community together. And so we had this false sacrificial ritual from the top of the temple where we literally got a blow-up doll and filled her full of booze that looked like blood, and we literally slit her throat and poured her down the funnel.
Oh my God.
And made everybody drink out of the funnel or whatever, right?
Wait, you
and
did it to the temple?
there were two of the gods were at the top of the temple and had this blow-up doll full of booze. And then we had this like
the
funnel.
Burning Man temple? Or?
No,
Okay,
our little temple.
Okay.
No way.
Oh God, I'm imagining people like crying because of like their dead parents, and you guys are doing this thing up there.
We've definitely marked,
I don't think we've desecrated the temple that
we've
bad.
never desecrated the temple, but
yeah.
we've marked the man a few times, but never the temple.
Gotcha.
So, especially not with that.
Yeah.
So the funnel basically let the blood drain all the way down this little Mayan temple, and I was at the bottom basically making everybody drink out of this high pressure valve, and the valve breaks, and so I'm spraying blood all over the whole crowd, like trying to get this thing to stop. People are trying to drink it. It's a big mess. We're mooping everywhere with like Kool-Aid booze. And then at the right when this is happening, one of our couches bursts into flame, like just bursts into flame inside of her. You see flames coming out of the top of our structure, right? The separate structure that's our main bar, and nobody does anything because they think it's part of the ritual. And we believe potentially one of our friends, love you garbage man, might have fallen asleep with a cigarette and it smoldered for many hours, and the thing just went up and a fireball. Our two have working fire extinguishers that are checked, because we had two extinguishers that were were completely dead, and we ended up having to put it out with playa several times. So then the creepier thing is, and this is right when we're sacrificing a virgin.
Playa off the ground and like covering up the fire. Okay.
Yeah. And beer. Like,
oh my God.
Get.
I don't know if, does beer help?
Beer, because it's not that much alcohol.
Okay.
Like not a craft beer from San Diego.
But it really only starts getting like flammable when it's about 40 to 50 proof 40 50% and higher and heated.
Also, just
like microwave Jack Daniels will light non-microwave Jack
We
Daniels.
put it out.
And then it relit.
We had to
and then we put it out,
outside.
and then it relit. Oh, and that was, we couldn't get people off of that couch to clean it up the whole rest of the year. Because, like, you guys are old school, you got a half-burned couch in front of your camp. People loved it. But then it gets crazier, because this is right when we were sacrificing a virgin and kind of making a mockery of what was a very crazy culture with crazy gods. It was enough to the point which it was like, you better chill out, because we almost lost the whole village, including Ego Trip, because our gas was on the other side of that, and if we were not there, that would have been a really bad situation, like really quick.
Oh
and
my God.
A week later, one of our camp members' parents' house burned down from a couch fire that relit after the firemen came. So be careful with idolatry, kids. The magic is real out there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
third
And fire, that's for sure.
Wait, so the lesson is don't bring couches?
flammable ones.
Well, just be careful about couches.
Yeah.
Actually, this reminds me of a really interesting joke that I think it's a stand-up comedian did. This is my friend. He does it in Irish, but he's like, let me tell you why I love marijuana. Okay, see, because if you fall asleep with a cigarette in your mouth, you wake up and your whole house is burnt down. But you fall asleep with a joint in your mouth, you wake up, you still got half a joint.
So as far as legit advice,
yeah, that's a pretty
that's a good one.
No, that was a great one. But Nick, you had something that was not silly. I mean,
I mean, the biggest thing I could say is just
don't forget to have fun. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, just deep breathe and smile, because I mean, we're all here to have a good time, and like getting on somebody is really not the best way to go about your time or to fulfill their time. So just take a moment if you're feeling stressed or upset, and just deep breathe, try and laugh a little bit, smile at yourself, and say, what the fuck, we're out in the desert.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And follow Burning Man's rules.
And beware of sleeping with the fishes. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
I will say...
I got very mafia for a minute.
They were goldfish. But
goldfish, right.
Don Milky. Let's see. So I have maybe like two pieces of advice. The first one would just sort of be like social in terms of a really good phrase that my girlfriend, I guess fiance now, and I use with each other is... you're having expectations you shouldn't be having. You should know better. So like when you want something really bad to happen. So let's say you show up and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna take this and this. I'm gonna go hook up with this super awesome girl, and this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen. And you show up and you expect all these things, and then when they don't happen, you end up being hung up on that expectation, and otherwise what would have been from a third person objective experience the most beautiful, amazing experience of your entire life can be completely overshadowed because you can't get outside from your own ego of expectations, and like, I deserve for this thing to happen that I wanted to have happen, and it's really, really easy to not go with the flow and get caught up in this world of expectations that you have for yourself.
Seek attachment.
Yeah, so a really good little phrase for yourself is, you're having expectations you shouldn't be having. You should know better. And then another really decent one that I would say came from my first year at the Burn. So my friends Jim and Mike Pez were driving home, and I felt a little bit bad because I had introduced them in the first place about this. But we'd all camped together, and on the way home we were driving, and my friend Jim was in the car, and he was sleeping, and he was using a roll of like 24 toilet papers that they just didn't get through. He was like using it as a pillow, and he was just like sleeping in the car. And my other friend Mike was driving, and he was like, okay, so once I get to like that mile marker up there or whatever, like I'll stop and pull over and like take a thing. And he just pushed it just a little bit longer than he needed to.
Yeah.
And ended up falling asleep at the wheel, popped back up when he rolled over the rumble strip, turned to left, like car started skidding out, so he tried to overcorrect. He was in a little overweighted Honda CRV, and the car ended up catching an edge and flipped.
Oh my God.
On the 5 on the way home, like right north of like Kalinga Hills, maybe like an hour north of Kalinga Hills about, and flips the car. My friend Jim wasn't wearing a seatbelt because he was like sleeping, so he was like stretching out and kind of like had his legs up on the dash and was like sleeping and that thing. And it was only because of that toilet paper roll that he bought from Costco and never ended up using, that he was using a pillow, that he's completely unhurt from the entire thing. Both of them, the most injured that he was he got a little bit cut from the glass when he was reaching back into the car to grab his wallet and his phone from the thing. So like, Yeah, so I would say the other piece of very, very deliberate advice is be so careful, especially coming home, especially going back. It's so easy to get into this mindset of, I'm just going to power through it. I'm just going to power through it. I'm just going to do it. Like, I don't care if I'm tired. I'm just going to handle it. And it's really, really dangerous when you've been running for 24 hours straight and haven't slept in the last and coming home from the burn and just thinking that you have more gas in the tank than you do because you're so delirious and you don't know. So I always recommend taking an extra day to get, especially from San Diego, an extra day to get there and back.
And bring extra toilet paper.
And bring extra toilet paper. Absolutely.
And
single ply.
Safety third.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that. On our drive up, I think my first burn, like I remember full on hallucinating.
Yeah,
like I full on hallucinated that we went flying off the side of I full on hallucinated that we went flying off the side of the cliff, and I wake up going, no. Bob is driving, and he's like, what? And I told him what happened. He starts laughing, and he's like, maybe we should pull over. Let's do that.
Yeah, sleep and eat, and you will have a much better time.
Absolutely.
And you'll remember more.
Yeah, way more.
That's okay.
I know. I was like, I don't know.
Are you guys? So, are you villaged again with Wet Dreams this year?
Wet Dreams is not going this year, so we're running solo.
Subsumed some of their members, and now it's Shangri-Lawless on its own again.
Yeah. A little wetter. A little wetter.
If I had a sound effect cue right now, I hit that like.
I'll take that.
Good, bad, and the ugly.
Dude, thank you for having us, man.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for coming on. You guys are fucking awesome, and thank you so much for doing all that you do for the community. And I know I personally have reaped the benefits of all that Shangri-Lawless has done. I've had a great time.
It's about time to
hear, dude.
You guys are fucking awesome, and I'm really happy to get you guys on and get the stories.
Super happy to be here. Yeah.
Well, we'll be on 8 and E this year.
Yeah.
8 and E.
Yeah.
8 and E.
So.
We got a big party. Got a big party on Tuesday night. We have at least. I can't say exact money, but a few things that we can think is that since we didn't make a huge amount of money and we're not spending a lot more on sound equipment this year, we are bringing a lot of our friends that have art cars over, and we're kind of plugging in, and we're doing a big. We're trying to make as big and as long a block party as possible. So we should have several tens of thousands of more watts than we do normally.
Nice. That's a little teaser for you, listeners.
Little teaser.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, well, there it is. You can tweet me directly at Mr. Arash, and when discussing the show, please do use the hashtag #BurnerPodcast. You can also catch me on the Crappy Awesome podcast. It is a weekly interview show and a staple in the independent hip-hop community for about 4 years and 250 plus episodes. Find that over at platformcollection.com. Leave us some reviews on iTunes, guys. We'd really appreciate it. I know it's hard because you're listening, you're probably driving, you're working, and you got to take like extra steps to go online, but it would be helpful. It would help spread the word about the show. Our intermission music, it's actually the music that was used on Cabina Exura's commercial today, is by Duckman. Check out his music over at duckmansd.bandcamp.com. And if you're a musician in the community, do tweet your music over to our music editor, Navjeet, at @IamNavjeet. The Burner Podcast theme song is America's Horse With No Name remix, produced by Joeman. Check out his stuff over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joeman. Our new online editor is Tori. She does help us figure out all the social media stuffs and things. You can shoot her a message over at burnerpodcast.com at the contact page. Hope you'll join us next time. We do release new episodes on the first and third Wednesdays of the month. So until next time, love and light and all that other crap. Good night.